Can I have your attention, please? I'd like to call the meeting to order. Good evening. Welcome to the Lowell Planning Board for Monday, May 7th, 2018. Tonight we do have 3 public hearings on the matter. Well, pre-application, I should say, then a preliminary matter, then an ordinance amendment. So we'll start off with the acceptance of the minutes, which would be on April 19th, 2018. Any of the board members have any corrections on the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a comment that Jared did a real exceptional job on these minutes.
Oh,
Yeah, I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah. We had them ready the next day after the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
So with that, I make a motion to accept the minutes as submitted.
I'll second the motion.
Motion is made by Mr. Fischett, and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes, the minutes are approved. 5 in favor, none against. So we have a pre-application site plan review for 78-90 Lakeview Ave. The following individual has requested the planning board provide a preliminary review of their proposed project at the address listed above. This is not a public hearing. The planning board will render no decision related to the site plan review, nor guarantees any future decision, whether positive or negative, of any project that receives pre-application review. So the address is indicated as above. The project to redevelop the existing building and lot into a new Domino's restaurant with more than 14 parking spaces. The zoning is the UMU, which is the urban mixed use. And this matter will require site plan approval in the future if it comes back. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Brian Melissi with Whitman and Bingham Associates, here representing GDS Enterprises. With me tonight also is Brian Wilburner from Wilburner Construction, who hopefully will be the general contractor on the job. If it's okay with the chair, I'd just like to approach that easel and throw up a board very quick.
Absolutely, sure. Just put on the angle a little bit so the public can see as well, sir. Thank you. Sure. That looks fine, yeah? Yeah. And you can take either microphone you like, or if you point out from there,
one there.
okay?
Pull up a version of what that board shows. Like you said, the property is located at 78-90 Princeton, Lakeview Ave. It's right at the intersection where Lakeview Ave and VFW come to an intersection just to the north of Bridge Street. It's the old, the former building of Larry's Comics, and there was a service station there as well. It is in the UMU, Urban Mixed Use District, so therefore the restaurant use is allowed. Currently, the site plan that you have in front of you is the one that we had submitted, and hopefully the one that we plan on submitting after this pre-application hearing. One of the things that we would like to point out and get some input from the board, or whether it be tonight or whether just to kind of let you guys know it would be coming down the pike, is when we do submit for our special site plan review, we're also going to be submitting for a special permit in regards to the parking. This type of use, a restaurant use, we do not qualify for a takeout, quote-unquote takeout restaurant. So we fall under the restaurant use, which requires 1 spot for every 50 square feet. Our restaurant is just, it's about 3,600 square feet, and actually, I'm sorry, 2,800 square feet. And if you did the math, we need about 58 parking spaces. The zoning ordinance for the city of Lowell allows this board, the planning board, to reduce that parking factor for uses in the UMU zone to up to or down to 1 spot for every 500 square feet. It used to be in charge of the zoning, the ZBA. However, recently, I'm not exactly sure how long ago, but they put the planning board as the approving authority for that. So some quick numbers. What we have in our site plan is we show 19 spaces. And currently, with the amount of building or the amount of restaurant we have, it would come down to a calculation. We have 1 space for every 152 square feet. So we're well under that 1 per 500 square feet that we are allowed. We did meet with Christine and staff earlier on when we were developing the plan, and I think we were fortunate enough to get a little bit of input from the outgoing city engineer before he went. And one of the things is, our original plan, while it's very similar to the layout we had here, we had two-way in and two-way out on both egresses. We do meet the dimensional standards for that. However, Nick had said that, he suggested that maybe because of the proximity of the curb cuts and the egresses, that we limit it to one way in, one way out, which we have done that. So the westerly entrance, if you will, would be the in, and we would come around in the U shape and use the easterly entrance as the exit. The plan shows a dumpster location conveniently located so that the trucks could pull right in, be able to dump, and just back up just a little bit and maneuver. We do have one handicap parking spot per the zoning code, per ADA, and that fluorescent yellow areas that you see on the site plan there is really some of the proposed sidewalks and how we're going to tie into the existing sidewalks along Lakeview Ave. We did receive some staff comments. We do have to go in front of the Conservation Commission. We are within some of the floodplain. We have a grading scheme. I know it's not the purview of this board, however, we do have a grading scheme that we think will satisfy the Conservation Commission. We have a stormwater plan worked out. Existing services, we're going to be using the existing services to the existing building, both water and sewer. So we don't think we have to increase any of those. When you do see it for the full-blown site plan, we will have landscaping plans. We will be able to meet the landscaping requirements from the site plan review and from the zoning code. I know I was very quick and brief, but that's really the proposal. I would point out that GDS Enterprises currently owns 3 Domino's in the city, one over on Mammoth Road, one on Chelmsford Street, which he recently permitted, and one on Bridge Street. The one on Bridge Street will be closing and moving to this location here. I do have some input on some of the parking at those other facilities, if the board is interested now. I can let you know that, otherwise I would.
Sure, if you have it, why don't you share it with us?
Yep. So the Mammoth Road Domino's that went in, the building size is 1,600 square feet, and that's just a restaurant. They have offices upstairs, and they have 11 spaces. They were required to have 20, but because there was a public parking within 400 feet of that facility, they were able to reduce it by 50%, and they provided 11. The Chelmsford Street Domino's is a little bit bigger at almost 2,400 square feet. They were required to have 47 spaces, but they went and petitioned the Zoning Board of Appeals back when they were the approving authority, and they were allowed to put in 36 spaces. And I will say, if you've ever gone by there, the spaces are very underutilized. There's always open spaces. So we do think we have enough parking. We think it's laid out professionally, that it's going to work. We hopefully, when the time comes, this board will agree with us. And that's all I have for right now, Mr.
Is
Chair.
there anybody else who's with you tonight and wants to speak as well, sir?
Excuse me?
Is there anybody else who you brought with you tonight and want to speak as well, or? No?
Nope, I
Okay.
don't think so.
Okay, I'll turn it over to the board members. So I have one question. So I see the parking lot's one color, then you have the, you want to call it orange color?
That's the building. I'm sorry, that's the existing building.
Yeah.
So the brownish, yep.
So then over to the right, it says the existing building number 78.
Yep.
And your project says the address is 78 to 90.
So 78 is actually the building address. 90 Lakeview is actually where the parking lot is. It's just happens to have 2 separate
So the-
addresses.
The white lot that says 78 on that, is that part of your proposal?
Not for this proposal. We're taking half the building and upfitting it to a restaurant.
Okay, all right, all right. So to the white on the right of the orange is not part of this plan? Okay.
Correct.
All right. Because I saw that number 78, so that's why I had the question, okay. So that's just the building numbers? So the orange is part 78 as well? Is that what it is?
Correct. The building itself is 78 Lakeview. 90 is where the parking lot is. It was a separate parcel.
Gotcha.
And that's where the parking's going.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, okay. Mr. Snetsky, any questions?
Yeah, just so I understand, the existing building is where the comic store was and the garage?
Correct.
Is that building going to remain, or are you going to tear down that building and build a new building?
Nope, the building is going to remain.
Aha.
They're gonna upfit, or, upfit the inside of the interior and the exterior of the building as well. But there's no new buildings going. We're gonna upfit the existing building.
And you're saying only a portion of it is going to be used for the Domino's at this point?
Correct. Correct.
Is that primarily where the comics were?
It's actually where the service station
Where the-
was. If
where
you
the,
remember the building,
garage
if you're
was.
looking at it from
Yes.
Lakeview, there's an overhead door where they would bring the vehicles in for service. That portion will be the Domino's, to the right of where the garage was.
Are those actually two separate units, or is it one building with two separate units to it?
Yeah, it's actually one fairly large building. With this project, they are gonna put a party wall in and kind of separate the two uses of the building. But it is basically one building. It's kind of a maze of hallways and whatnot when you get in there.
And is there any plan or any intention to use the remaining building for some purpose?
At this point, I don't know what it is. The owner doesn't know. I'm sure he's going to, but at this point in time, I couldn't tell you what he's gonna use that for.
Okay. Would the subsequent use, maybe there's a question for Christine, a subsequent use of that remaining portion of the building affect things like parking requirements and so forth?
Potentially, depending on the use, and then what the parking requirement is, and then we do have a shared parking table, but it all depends on what that use will be.
And if I may, based on the complete size of the building, the 6,000 square feet, with our 19 spaces, based on that number, we would have one space for every 316 square feet. So I just would like to point that out, that we're still under that 500 square foot, one spot per 500 square foot. But I couldn't do the calculation right now on the use, because we don't know what it's gonna be.
So out of the 6,000, you're gonna use approximately 2,800 and the rest would require whatever permitting might be required for that use at whatever time that might come about.
We very well could be back in front of this board for site plan review for change in use or for that portion of the building, correct?
In general, I don't see a problem with this proposal, and from my observation of the Domino sites that I drive by or whatever, I get the sense that, there's not a large eat-in clientele, and therefore, I would not have a problem with the proposed parking. Those would be my thoughts on that.
I should have maybe pointed that out. I don't do a whole lot of eating at Domino's, but it seems to be you go in, you wait, you pick it up, and you leave. There are some tables for some sit-down, eat-in dining, but most of it is a fairly transient type of food service.
That's my observation, that the type of restaurant it is not primarily, an eat-in type of environment, which would require the, higher ratio of parking. Those are my only comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members have any questions?
I have one,
Mr. Lockhart?
Chairman. You're gonna get a certain amount of walk-in traffic here, I would expect, and it's a busy area. Can you just step us through what pedestrian amenities you have built into the design here
Sure. If I may just.
to provide their safety? I mean, crossing Lakeview Avenue and potentially the VFW highway is,
This is just a blow-up.
You can use, anyone behind you, just make sure you have the green light on, sir, okay? Thank you.
Test. This is just a blow-up of the architectural plans that were included in the package. And this is phased such that the VFW highway is going to be to the left, and Lakeview Ave is up here to the right. The two means of egress are going to be here for pedestrian, for clientele. The overhead door in this location will remain, but obviously just for some deliveries and whatnot. I want to go back to the site plan. Those two egresses are labeled here and labeled here. And so what we do is, the reason why I wanted to kind of highlight that the sidewalk system on Lakeview Ave is we're going to connect our sidewalk system right to that. So anybody coming down the sidewalk on Lakeview Ave will be able to, by foot, access here. There won't be any fences or gates or anything to that effect. To be perfectly honest, we haven't looked at really any crosswalks yet. I can certainly do that prior to filing the complete site plan approval.
I would think that that should be part of it. I mean, it's a very busy area, and I think you need to consider
No, I think it's a good idea. We can
support there.
we'd be able to match it up with some of our sidewalks and whatnot, and make sure it's in kind of concert with what's going on the other side of Lakeview Ave.
Right.
I would agree with that.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Fischel?
thank you. Just looking at and this is more granular, and we get to the actual application, but on the dumpster location, and not quite sure what size dumpster you're looking to use and what type of vehicle will be picking that up, but have you tested that radius for, how will they exit the site when they, will they be able to make that turn?
Yeah, they can. We actually kind of opened up the radius over here
Okay.
for them to be able to come in, and they'd be able to exit.
So you took that into consideration when you
We did.
designed that turn? Okay, all right. Yeah, no, I think conceptually, have no issue with that. I think actually we'll address that area up a little bit at this point. And hopefully from the VFW side too, you'll make that as visually pleasing as possible, because that's a highly visible location, coming through the intersection and going right by there.
And I know this is a pre-application hearing, but the architecturals are still kind of being tweaked. However, the ones in your package do show, all 4 elevations and some of the branding that's going to go on. So they are planning on kind of sprucing up all the sides, so.
And then on the side where, on Lakeview Ave, again, it's more of a, and I know it's more of a takeout and type of establishment, but you're really right on the sidewalk. It's a neighborhood business district right around there. So we did that with the CVS. We really wanted to make a connectivity to the neighborhood. So you really want to have that into consideration when you're designing the connection to the neighborhood, I think, from that side. So you've got 2 things going on. You've got a major roadway going by on one side that you really want to be, I think, visually pleasing, and then on the Lakeview Ave side, you really want to be accommodating and really a connection to the neighborhood. So just bear that in mind with the final design. And to Mr. Sinensky's comment, I think that's why Domino's has the insurance when you pick up your pizza if it gets damaged. So it's primarily takeout is what I think of with Domino's, so,
Yeah, all right.
good. Thank you.
Mr. Malovich?
Yeah, I don't have any real problems with this proposal, but you're running a inside restaurant that's people are gonna walk in and take out their food. Are Domino's gonna have that kind of service where they deliver to the car parked in the parking lot?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, and I will find that out.
Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't change much,
Yep.
but
Oh, I
if they're
will,
guaranteeing the pizza, they may as well walk it out to the car.
that's a good point. I will find that out for when we come in.
And you
for
said
the-
that the four facades are going to be treated, the whole building is 6,000 square feet. I really have no other, just landscaping is the one thing I want to see.
Yep, there'll be a full landscaping plan in the complete set. We have started to lay it out with the number of trees and the number of, the square footage requirements, and we
Yeah.
do meet that, but there will be a plan that you guys can review,
Yeah,
absolutely.
as many trees as you could put in the lot would be great.
And so we kind of included an island here in order to meet those regulations, so this will be treed, there'll be a couple of, shade trees along here. A budding building is fairly close over here, so I don't think we can put a lot of large trees, but we are gonna put a green screen in here,
Yeah.
just to put some headlight.
Is it going to be fenced in?
It is fenced in now, I'm not exactly sure whether that's gonna remain, I'll get those
I'd be
answers.
curious to see what the fencing situation is going to be, whether it's, and what type of fencing you're going to replace what's there now, or if you're taking it all out. You probably want to secure the lot some way.
Well, exactly, and so we'll figure out, and it'll be, put it on the proposal.
Definitely along VFW highway, you don't want people
Absolutely.
trying to walk.
Matter of fact, that fence may be belong to the state as it is anyway, so most of it is not on our property, so, yeah.
Probably does.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have two brief questions. So I take it you'll do takeout deliveries as well, like most Domino's do?
Correct.
Car deliveries?
Correct.
Come in, call it in, and they'll drive it to them?
Yeah.
So would you put that car that comes up, pull that up front, or do you put it in the parking lot spot, or?
What we've done is when we developed the layout here, there's 2 parallel parking spots that we found room for here. While we don't have them labeled now, more than likely, it's kind of a perfect spot for the drivers. They'd be able to come in here, access the sidewalk to do it, and then they can go. They're not labeled specifically for that yet. We may have to do that, just trying to
That way
keep
you
as
have-
much.
You have that one car, that has a Domino sign on the roof that
Exactly.
they can pull up and pick up and do it.
Yeah. Yep.
And then just one other question about the dumpster. I know as long as you have the turning radius, you should be okay, but either that, if you had any concerns on that, you could always have the dumpster pick up, on operational hours that the store's not open. And then you can have plenty of room to make your pickup and delivery. I know those pizza places, especially when you have colleges nearby, stay open pretty late, but, you can probably have a better chance of picking it up early in the morning than you would than nighttime service. So if there's any comments on that, I'm sure you have flexibility on, the pickup hours of your dumpster, so.
We can look into that as well.
Yeah, that way you say, come in the morning, because you'll have less people eating pizza at 9 AM than you will at 2 AM. So, but besides that, I have no further comments. Anybody else have any further comments?
Oh.
Anybody here this evening that has any questions on this project? I know it's not a public hearing, but if people have comments, I'd be entertain them. Having none, okay. The board members have any more follow-up? No? So,
I have one question. What about neighborhood use of parking overnight? Is that something you're gonna control?
That's a good question.
Whether you want it or not, it doesn't matter to me, but there'll be a tendency by the neighbors to park in there, especially in the wintertime.
That's a good question, and that's my kind of little part and parcel with some of the security law, that we're gonna have gates that segregate this, during hours that aren't open, or maybe open it up for neighbors. I will talk with the board, and we will definitely have that answer when we come back in front of you.
sometimes,
Also, snow storage is gonna be removed?
Yeah, we do have a little bit, obviously, there's not much, we do have some area for snow storage, but like anything else, once that gets full, he's gonna have to remove it.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
All right, thank you.
so how long would a development like this take to develop? Because I noticed the sign said Domino's coming soon. On the
Oh, it
fence
did?
on the VFW, so
I didn't
I'm just
see
curious
that.
how soon it's coming, so.
I mean, they're kind of getting ready to
They're
go.
quick.
Those architectural plans are
Yeah.
to the point where they are out for pricing.
That's
We get
quick.
the pre-application, and I know when I leave here, we're gonna get the application back into this board as soon as we can, with some of these questions here. So now evening, so I think he's gonna be wanting to get under construction as soon as possible. So that's probably about, maybe one of the process. I'd say 4 to 5 months. 4 or 5 months construction process.
By early fall.
And even on, your lot, if you had to, close it at night, you can get by with a chain link fence or something, just, this is easy enough. You see that, a lot of places in the city now, you see it, even churches do it now, so people don't just, pull in there, so that's a simple remedy if you're concerned about people flooding your parking lot at night, so. And obviously, you want to keep it well lit for your own safety concerns,
Yeah,
from
the lighting,
vandalism and
yeah.
everything else.
The outside lighting.
Plan, we've actually already have that as a
Okay.
plan, that'll be in the package.
Yeah, okay.
Probably knows what we're building.
Well, thank you and good luck. We wish you well. Thank you.
Right back, Tom.
See you soon. Yep.
But it was only a little driveway?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for Rich here to, yeah. So if you want to set up, Matt, fine.
Have you been over there?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's a street, I mean, it's not,
yeah, see, it wide,
it's, they're proposing 20 foot. If I recall. Let's see, this one, oh, yeah, the applicant has requested a waiver to make the street 20,
yeah,
permanently paved for turnaround,
that,
and curving on one
that's the
side.
city engineer call.
Yeah.
Looks like they just paved it.
Okay, moving along on the agenda, the next matter is a preliminary subdivision on 27 Stratham Street. The board will hear a request for a preliminary review of a proposed subdivision at the above-listed address. The applicant proposes to subdivide an existing 20,224 square foot lot and build out Stratham Street, and to the extent necessary to provide additional 2 new lots that would be created by the subdivision. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Yes, good evening, Chairman and members of the board. For the record, my name is Matt Hammer with Lamplex Engineering and Surveying, located here in Lowell. I'm here this evening representing the Daly Group, also of Lowell, Mass. And with us here this evening is David Daly, representing that group here as well. As you know, Mr. Daly has developed many properties in Lowell, and his intention this evening is to go through the preliminary subdivision application process for a pre-review with the planning board for the extension of Stratham Street, which is existing as a private way right now. The acceptance line on that private way is here, and it's off of Morton Street. It intersects with Morton Street. There's a Pan Am Railroad track to the south of the property, and there's a proprietors of the Lowell Cemetery here, as well as the City Lowell property to the north. Stratham Street is here, and if you notice, I gave each of you an exhibit plan showing Stratham Street on an aerial, and it shows that essentially this ends at the railroad. So the railroad is depressed down into the ground approximately 15 feet, maybe 20 feet. So the likelihood of this area being further extended is, in my mind, unlikely because of that. There's a new bridge here over the actual railroad track here that was recently improved. I'm not sure of the year, but it is relatively new. There's an existing paved roadway here. There's an existing dwelling here, which is 27 Stratham Street, which is located on 21,714 square feet. The grades go down in this direction here from Stratham Street. And existing right now is Stratham Street being 20 feet wide. We have sewer and water on Stratham Street. And like I said, an existing dwelling. We're proposing to improve Stratham Street, the same 20 feet of width that's existing there now. And we're gonna extend the roadway to this point here, approximately 350 lineal feet. We're gonna further subdivide the existing property into a total of 3 lots. The existing dwelling will remain. I know there was a comment in the comments that came through with DPD related to the side setback to an existing porch that would be non-compliant. We're gonna take that porch out, so that will be fully compliant. And then we'll be proposing two fully compliant lots off of Stratham Street. The pavement that will extend here is shown in gray. We're going to propose a sheet drainage to a rain garden drainage system, which is essentially an open drainage system with an emergency outflow here at an infiltration basin. A detail of that cross-section is here. Sidewalk, 20 feet of pavement with a 2% cross slope. And then there's a pea stone pre-treatment trench next to the roadway. Then it goes over a grass filter strip to an additional swale. I got the chance to meet with the review agent from the sewer department today before the meeting, and we had a very productive meeting. They were in full support of the drainage concept, so that was good. And additionally, on Friday, we received some comments back from the fire department for this emergency T turnaround that we'll be proposing, similar to what we did on Berry Road. And preliminarily right now, the fire chief is okay with this T turnaround. He just had some concerns on the other side of the road. He thought this might have been a retaining wall, but it's not a retaining wall. And the roadway's 2.5% in slope. So we feel confident that the fire chief, Casey, will be okay with this T turnaround. We're going to be requesting 3 waivers from the planning board. One would be the pavement width. We'll be proposing 20 feet to the 28 that's required. We feel as though as long as the fire department is okay for safety reasons to get in and out of the site, then that could be supported. We're going to be requesting an additional waiver to just have one sidewalk on this side of the street here, and that'll extend up to Morton Street. And one of the comments that came back from DPD, the Department of Planning and Development, was to just make sure that the handicap ramp on the other side of Morton Street is just improved to meet handicap standards, which we're okay with. And the other is the emergency turnaround. Typically, there would be a cul-de-sac if you were designing a new subdivision on a raw piece of land, but we'll be providing that emergency turnaround with this T turnaround configuration. We're going to be proposing these 2 new dwellings. With this home here. As you know, Mr. Daly does a really top quality job when constructing his homes. These dwellings are gonna have overhangs, which is nice. It's got some gable end structures off the front. These will have 2-car garages, so essentially each one of these houses will have 4 parking spaces. And as you can see, it's gonna, I think, be a nice added look to the existing roadway itself. We received the comments from the Planning and Development, of which I don't know if you wanted to go through all of them, but we're in agreement with all of the comments. One thing I can say is that there was a comment related to some of the natural features in the area. And in this photo, you can see that there are some mature trees along the northerly side of the roadway. And what we can do is if it makes sense to work with planning and development to see if we can save some of those trees, we most certainly can do that. And there's a possibility, there's a mature tree that, it's hard to see, it's right here in front of the existing house. And there's a possibility that we could actually save that tree as well. And if needed, if for whatever reason those trees were to come down, we could actually add some street trees along the improved roadway. We're gonna be putting in an additional street light. We'll work with the planning department in terms of the design of that street light to make sure it meets the city's standards. And the utilities are fairly straightforward. We're gonna be, when I met with the sewer department today, we're gonna do 2 separate low-pressure sewer pumps that'll each individually go to the sewer manhole that's located here. The water line will be extended down Stratham Street, and there'll be a flushing hydrant at the end of the street for that water line extension. And like I said, the proposed dwellings and the lots will meet all of the requirements of the zoning ordinance for frontage, area, and all the other setback requirements. And I can answer any questions from the board.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Anybody else on behalf of the applicant want to speak? No?
Mr. Chairman, may
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you the public first.
oh,
Anybody here this evening who wants to speak in favor of the subdivision? Anybody in favor of the subdivision? Want to speak? Anybody want to speak, like, in opposition of the subdivision? In opposition? In opposition? Okay, I'll turn it over to the board members at this time.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just a question, Matt, because you said you were in possession of the comments from DPD, and you were in agreement with all the comments, so I just will take it to number 12. And it kind of goes hand in hand with the engineer's comments, engineering department's comment, and even though the fire department, you know, I looked at this, I mean, certainly it was not, you know, they did mention it does not fully comply with code. And I think if you, I mean, just from a consideration of the high-end homes that you're building, not to have, you know, an easement to have to deal with on the property would probably be something that would be much more attractive to somebody willing to buy those homes too. So I'm curious as to, you know, you said you were in agreement with everything on that sheet, so that caught my attention. Have you?
Completely understood.
Yeah.
You know, we get comments from different departments, and I felt as though that primary issue would be under the jurisdiction or more weight from the fire department, because that's a safety issue related to turning a vehicle around. It's a little bit difficult to do it at the end of the road if you were to keep extending it. The nice thing is when you do the T turnaround on the lot line, it can be incorporated utilizing the existing road for the T turnaround. I can say that we will have 4 parking spaces for each house, so I don't think there is going to be a big problem with it being you know, used by visitors because of the 4 spaces. But again, we can work with the planning department on this, but I'm getting comments from planning department, engineering, and the fire department. I thought the fire department would weigh in more on that specific aspect because of the public safety portion of it.
So then if I heard you correctly, when you met with the fire department, because in their comments, they talked about no parking signs, are you saying now they don't feel that's necessary?
No, we would put all the typical requirements of no parking, violators would be towed, we would line stripe the area as well, like we proposed on Berry Road. And whatever the fire department feels is necessary to be incorporated into that T turnaround, we would provide.
So just the concern is that, from an enforcement perspective, if you can accommodate a turnaround that doesn't require, an easement and who's responsible for it, and then having no parking, who's responsible to enforce that? I just think from a practical perspective, and I think, and again, who am I, but even from a marketing perspective on the homes, not having that as an easement on the property with, a matter of fact, those houses, that could be green space for the houses rather than, a hot top area for a turnaround. So something to think about.
Okay.
Working with DPD.
Sure.
And give that, I would ask that you give that some real consideration.
Sure.
So,
Yep.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I have a
Sure,
question.
Mr. Melovich?
This is gonna be a city street?
Yes, it is, sir.
The city's gonna plow this street?
Yes.
Who's gonna make sure that that turnaround is plowed?
The city.
Is that agreeable to the city?
It's my understanding that it will be in the end, just like Berry Road was. When we did the T turnaround there, the city is accepting Berry Road as well as the T turnaround. And the other thing too is this is a much smaller area to take care of instead of creating a conventional full cul-de-sac also. So there's less road that has to be maintained in the long run.
I understand that, but a contract plow that is doing this neighborhood, who's gonna be aware that there is a turnaround there that must be cleaned? It's gonna fall between the cracks, the way I see it. It's gonna be, the house at the end is gonna blow their snow from the driveway right onto that spot. And I think it's a major issue for the safety of that street in the wintertime, to make sure that turnaround is there. And I'd like to hear from the city that they're gonna do it.
Sure, and if the T turnaround needs to be extended beyond the homes, we will do that. We're just trying to, work through the process. We'll make sure we address that comment and look at the protocol to making sure that the T turnaround is maintained. And
I think it
and what the
makes more
protocol
sense
is
to
for the
have it
maintenance.
at the end of the road, from a plowing perspective, and that they could put rods in the ground, and someone could, the DPW could say to that, the drivers in that area, make sure that turnaround is clear.
And we'd probably, if needed or required, we'd install something more permanent than just a flexible rod.
Yeah.
When we first went over this design with the planning department, or it came back from engineering, they just wanted that end extended more so the snow wouldn't build up back in front of that driveway, and we extended the roadway, I believe 20 feet extra for what they were asking for, so that when they plow that road to the end, that if there is any buildup, there would be plenty of room for that driveway. And that's what we came up with, was this extended portion at the end of that roadway.
I agree with my fellow board member that turnaround as is shown there between the two new houses doesn't make much sense to me. I think
Okay.
it's wrought with problems. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Melovich. Mr. Snetsky?
In line with some of the comments made by my colleagues here, I would just recommend that you come to a meeting of the minds between DPD, engineering, and the fire department.
Yeah.
And, you know, I would be more than willing to defer to the collective decision, but it sounds like there should be some additional discussion of that.
Sure.
And like I say, just come to a meeting of the minds on that. Other than that, perhaps the end of the street is the best, but again, I'll defer to the experts on that one.
Okay.
And other than that, I don't see any particular issues with this development.
Sure, thank you.
I would include Public Works for the street plowing situation.
Anything else, Dick?
No, that's all
Okay,
I have
thank-
at this time.
Richard?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions on, the building department had some comments relating to drainage.
Yes,
See that, and potential of, drainage issues for the neighbor at 984 Lawrence Street.
yep.
Can you address that?
Yeah, we printed the international building code that he's citing. So we have that comment. We'll make sure we comply with that. I brought it up at the meeting with the sewer department that's reviewing all the drainage, and we'll make sure that we're in compliance to all the state and federal regulations related to that.
All right, good. And on the comment sheet, item number 9, the engineer's office offered comments specifically regarding the proposed E1 grinder pump,
Yep.
and it goes on with additional recommendations. Can you clarify that?
I can. Again, I spoke with the sewer department specifically about that comment today, and they recommended that we do 2 separate E1 grinder pumps, each connected to that existing sewer manhole. Yep, so we'll make sure we comply with the sewer requirements for those pumps.
All right, so that there's no need for any kind of a homeowners association? I see.
No, I don't, no.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr.
Thank you. I know we've seen this project once before, and then it didn't come back the second time. So we are familiar with the site, haven't been up there and walked it several times, and as recently as yesterday morning. But I had the same question, basically, that the board members have about putting that, the turnaround access. I mean, planning staff mentioned they weren't really happy for it, and actually you have to ask for a waiver on that. The fire department just says, it's not fully complying with the code, but they're okay with the width of the street. And then the building department also says they'd like to see the turnaround at the end of the street. I really don't think the city can plow that, for 2 reasons. Each one of those lots is a separate piece of lot, private residence, and they're gonna have an easement on the property. So therefore, the city has no right to come on the property. You're giving us the whole 70, it's not public land, it's private. So, the city's not gonna touch it. So now you have the burden between the 2 homeowners, which one's gonna plow it out to make sure it's compliant for the fire department? One guy goes to Florida for winter, the other guy doesn't. Is he gonna do it? If he doesn't, what happens? So I don't see the city's gonna touch that. I mean, it's private land, they have no right to go on there. I mean, the subdivision deals with the road. That turnaround is not part of the road. It's on the private property, right?
Yeah, but there would be an easement
Yeah, but
granted to the city.
the city doesn't have to accept an easement. It's like a
Well-
regular gift. If you wanna give me something, if I don't want it, you can write down you're giving it to me. If there's no acceptance,
Y- Yes, I
he
understand.
doesn't have to take it.
I
So now you're asking the city, will you please come and plow? What if they said, I want you to plow both my driveways while you're at it? Because I'm gonna give you an easement. Legally, that's the way I'm thinking on it. I think they're nice houses, I think it's a beautiful development.
Yeah.
I just think putting that in there legally, in my opinion as a lawyer, clogs the whole thing. I mean, you're creating problems for 2 people, beautiful neighborhood. I mean, plenty of trees in the neighborhood, I'm not worried about that. It's a nice area, but you're creating if neighbors don't get along, it's not gonna turn into a nice neighborhood. Because you're creating a potential problem for these people when they buy a house to say, I have to maintain this and turn it around, and if I don't do my share, now we have to block off everything else. I just think that, I mean, unless there's a real dire reason why you can't put it on the other road, the fire department mentions it, planning staff mentions it, building department mention it, 5 planning board members mention it, and I'll rest my case on that.
We'll make sure we,
You know what I mean?
we speak with everybody
I just
about
think
it.
it's easier for you to clean the whole thing right up, and it'll be a beautiful development. That's my personal opinion. You know, unless you say you came to the end, it was a strict drop-off, and a big reason. I know it does slope down in the back, so when you push all this snow, there's plenty of places to go. Or even when you go further. But I mean, you know, when you have nice single-family homes and putting the easements on there for a turnaround, where you have the rest of the length of the road to go a little further and clean it up, and, you know, even Jerry said marketable reasons, but, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, three staff comments at it, and all board members commented on it. Besides that, it was I think that was the only negative comment you had from anybody. So I'd give that some consideration.
Yeah, I mean,
You don't see where you're gonna get the city come on there.
the,
Because now, like most plows do by mistake, they tear up part of their grass. They're gonna be calling the city, come back and clean up my lawn, reseed it. You know, it's gonna, legally, you know, being an attorney for, 38 years, this is the stuff we see in court on a daily basis. Why create it if you don't have to?
yeah, we'll see what we can do about extending that a little further and creating some sort of turnaround at the end.
You know, then,
It's just a little tight down there.
you know, I mean, you know, and then, it's open, it's neat, it's clean. I'm not even worried about the porch on the other house, to be honest with you, in my opinion. I mean, I've seen the porch, it's fine, but, yeah, I know you have a setback requirement, but, and you try to regulate all that, to me, that's de minimis compared to that turnaround.
We'll make sure we come up with a different
Unless-
configuration.
You know, I mean,
That works.
I think it'll be 2 beautiful houses when you're done if you don't have to put that turn in there. 'Cause I don't think the city's gonna plow it, and then you have problems. Now they have to maintain it, private people, I mean, I don't agree with shared driveways, right? No, we allow them in the city, but if they come in and meet the requirements, we give them to you. This, you're asking for a waiver on. This, we don't have to give it to you. But that's the only comment I have on that turnaround access, so.
And what we'll probably end up doing is extending that further, creating a T turnaround at the end.
Sure. Anything that, I mean, instead of doing a cul-de-sac, do a T, fine.
And maybe we'll clip into that corner.
Yeah.
I would think the fire department would be happy with that.
What might end up happening, we'll just come into this corner a little
Sure.
bit there and.
Yeah, I think it would matter to do it, it would really make it nice.
And then if
Because
that,
it's really secluded land back there, you know, I mean, when you go up there, I know the ballpark's to the right, you know, I've been there years ago with my kids and stuff, but to the left,
Yeah.
it's a nice quiet area, you know?
because the other thing we could do too, sorry for
No,
interrupting
no
you.
problem, no problem.
The other thing we could do is, we're trying to make sure that, we get the setback so we can get these houses in.
Yep.
It's a little tight there, but I think what we can do too is, try to do something there, and if the frontage was reduced slightly, just to make sure it wasn't over that, what would it be, 75 feet, the 15-foot reduction off the 90 feet that's required, then you can do a special permit on that lot at the end, if you cut into the frontage there to accommodate that.
I mean, you know, on streets that typically are dead end, I think you have more success rate requesting something like that. That's a
Yeah.
wide open public street going
Right.
into a main street.
Especially where down at the end there, the rest of that right-of-way, I don't think is ever gonna get utilized.
So, but as you said earlier, you're not gonna have any problem with that railroad thing that was there before, right? I mean, that's away from the property, you have no concern.
The railroad's 20,
You
I
said
think
something
it's,
that was buried in the back area?
no, there's just a railroad that runs next to the property.
Yeah.
I think it's down like 20 feet
Oh,
down.
yeah, I remember you said it was
Yeah.
down a bit, okay. It's 20 feet down from in the rear, right? Okay.
Yeah. And that's where all the drainage is going, down
I
to the
know it
railroad.
slopes back, and then at the end of the street, it slopes down too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it
It's the
does.
back to the left of the other,
Yeah.
the last house on the left?
Yeah, there's gonna be, the runoff's gonna get greatly reduced
Yeah.
from what would be going on to the cemetery property.
Any of the board members have any further questions? I know this is here just for the preliminary subdivision.
So we appreciate all your time.
Okay, so, I think you need a vote for this, all right, on the preliminary, whether we accept it or deny it, so you can come forward back with the final plan. I'll make a motion that we accept the preliminary subdivision plan.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Chairman, do we want to just put with the caveat that the applicant work with DPD and appropriate staff regarding the turnaround?
Sure. I mean, I think they get the concern on it, whether we add that or not. I don't think it makes a difference when they come back for the definitive subdivision.
I think that's my mistake.
What was that, Mr. Dale?
Just want to have it in the decision.
I think, I mean, you know, for the preliminary, I don't think it makes a difference whether we put the comment in, but definitive, yeah, I don't think it's gonna make a difference one way or another, but
Well, if-
I'll leave it as is.
If
and
the,
then-
if the maker of the motion would like to put that in there, I think it would be appropriate.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
okay, all right.
I'll amend it as amended by the vice chair. Motion's made and second still?
Second still.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good luck, wish you well.
Yep, thank you.
It's a nice neighborhood up there.
Have a
so
nice evening.
Thank you very much. Good luck with it, Mr. Daly. You're
Yeah,
welcome.
Nice project.
We'll see you in a few weeks. Thank you, Matt. You're welcome. Okay, moving along on the agenda, we have an ordinance for marijuana amendments, excuse me. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 5, the Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to the ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinance of City of Lowell, Massachusetts, with respect to Chapter 290, therefore entitled zoning, amending Article 2 definitions, Article 5 special regulations, adding Section 7.10 marijuana, Article 12 table of uses, and amending Sections 11.4.2 and 6.1.4 that deal with site plan review and parking regulations respectively. So there's been a, let's see, we received a couple of correspondences on this. This letter was addressed to our senior planner, Christine McCall. Dear Christine, at the meeting of the City Council that was held on April 10th, 2018, the following ordinance was read and referred to the Planning Board for a report and recommendation for May 7th, and a public hearing will be back before the City Council at 7 p.m. on May 15th, which is a week from tomorrow night. We have a copy of the ordinance. We also have another letter, which was by Eric Slagle from the Director of Development Services. The attached ordinance would submit to the Planning Board the attached amendment to the Lowell zoning ordinance would regulate marijuana use in the city of Lowell, both for medical and recreational purposes. These amendments have been reviewed by the zoning subcommittee, and we have a list of 1, 2, 3, 5 amendments that was requested to us for a zoning amendment. Christine, do you want to give us an update from staff on basically what the amendment details, instead of me just reading it and everybody saying what happened?
Mr. Chairman, are you referring to the memo I sent you today, or just
No,
in general?
just the ordinance in itself, I mean. I know it's basically we're gonna be bringing up retail marijuana, so this basically is how, what zones it could go into, where it's allowed.
Sure, so our zoning is going to update both adult use marijuana and medical. We don't explicitly mention medical marijuana in our ordinance as it exists now, so we do create a definition for it. We are proposing to allow all 4 marijuana uses that we've established: cultivation, testing, medical treatment center, which it would be a dispensary, and a recreational dispensary for adult use. We're proposing that in the regional retail, all of those uses be by special permit with the planning board. The high-rise commercial, we are going to allow cultivation, testing, medical treatment center, again, by special permit by the planning board. Office park, same thing, all 4 uses, special permit with the planning board. And we're going to allow in the light industrial and general industrial, cultivation and testing by right. According to this ordinance, all proposed new marijuana uses will require site plan review, and then depending on that use table, if a special permit's required, you will review that. So we did include definitions for, like I mentioned, just marijuana uses in general, and then we broke it down into the 4. Testing, which would be if an establishment wanted to come in and do research, sort of the help track seed to sale. We don't think there'll be a big market for that, but we did want to include it. Cultivation is obvious. We are not distinguishing between medical and recreational for cultivation and testing. You can do both, you can do one, you can do the other. It's sort of up to the proponent in terms of zoning. Then we do distinguish between recreational and medical dispensaries. We were concerned about clustering, so we did try to be thoughtful about 1,000 square foot distances. We did not want to have co-location of medical and recreational dispensaries on the same site. However, we did make note to make special exception for existing medical dispensaries that were in operation prior to July 1st of 2017, which sort of reflects, mirrors what the state requirement is. The proposed special regulations that we put forward for you to review is just giving the city review power to make sure we understand what type of business is going to be there, how it's going to operate, is it going to be safe, how does it fit within the land uses of the surrounding neighborhood, just to give the board sort of a timeline process when they apply with the state. During that portion, they will have to get a host community agreement with the city, and the city's currently working on what that process is going to look like, how the city's going to decide when to execute a host agreement and when not. Then when the license, I'm not sure if it's a full license or a provisional license, is issued by the state, then they would come and apply in front of the land use, in front of the planning board. So by the time you get an application, it will have already been vetted by the city manager's office, and however she decides to do that process. We'll have an executed host agreement, and we'll have a license from the state. You are still empowered to deny special permits, even though it's been through that process. And so we tried to set it up to get as much information to you as possible to help you make that decision. That's sort of where we are.
Okay, thank you. So this is a matter for us to make a recommendation to the council that's going to have a full public hearing next week. Anybody here this evening want to speak in regards to the ordinance? Anybody want to speak about the ordinance? No? Board members have any questions about the ordinance or recommendations?
Mr. Chairman, if I may just, to the revisions or the amendments that we received earlier today and the onset of the meeting, just under that 7.10.5, number 4, I know it was somewhat detailed in the original ordinance, and I would concur with the amendment in part because, and I actually took copies for all of the members just to have. I think it's just, it's a good opportunity to kind of discuss some of the challenges with this.
Thank you.
Those of you that know me know I'm come from the banking world, and one of the concerns with these facilities is the fact that it is difficult from a banking perspective for them to do business because it still is a federal offense. And I've just highlighted, this was actually an article in American Banker, and it really highlights, and it just for the members to read at their leisure and for DPD, but I think it is important to have some sort of security measure, at least some review from the police department. And I know there was some attempt to try to capture that into the zoning ordinance, but I think it was recognized that it needs to be really separate from the zoning ordinance. And one of the things that is of grave concern is that because it's difficult to find banking services, it has become very much a cash business in some respects, and it's been an issue across the country. And it has been a safety issue, dealing with the cash at these locations. So this goes into a lot of detail, and that is, I believe, primarily what, by making that item number 4 really more of a police matter rather than a zoning matter, I think is appropriate, because there are some measures that need to be taken into account beyond the zoning. And that would be my comment, Mr. Chairman, other than I think the provisions that are in here, they follow very much the state provisions. The citizen planner program actually put out some material, which was very good. The Cannabis Control Commission kind of outlines from the state perspective what's required. And I thought that was an interesting read as well beyond this, because it really is a process that, as Christine outlined, for a facility to become licensed. And again, this is to address it from a zoning perspective. So the only other question I have is regarding section 5 in the regarding the identifying the 500 feet from a public or private elementary school, middle school, secondary school, and really that's the state requirement that's already been identified. But then we go on to say, or college serving a student population where any of the student population is under 21. And I guess the only question I would have is just clarification on, as we've come into this, academic building or dormitory, and just for clarification, is it meant to be an academic building, or to incorporate the dormitories as well? I just think it might be best to even clarify that if it was just an academic building, but I would just throw that out there as a suggestion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Fischett. Any other board members have any comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Snetsky?
My only comments would be that, obviously, we as a city are required to address this, and the only things that I would want to see done is that it be reasonable and appropriate, both for applicants and for the welfare of the city. So I understand this has been vetted by staff, it's been vetted by the city council, it's been vetted by the city solicitor. So at this point, I would defer to them as having, thoroughly researched and developed this ordinance, and would support it on that basis.
Thank you. Any other board members? Bob? Richard, any questions?
I don't have any questions, I just make a comment regarding the documentation that was presented to us. I think it's very comprehensive and well done, including, just to point out some additional requirements, the performance standards, things like that it's well spelled out. I think the more information that can be presented to us, the better off we are, and Christine has alluded to that, and I'm comfortable.
Okay, thank you. Bob, any questions?
The only thing I can say is that it seems as if this is appropriate, and I agree with Mr. Snetsky that as long as, assuming the city has done its due diligence in creating this ordinance for approval, I'm not a technician, so I think we ought to approve it and see where it goes from there.
By looking through it, I don't have many questions. I just had one comment on the co-location, and that would be number C. The simultaneous operation of a medical marijuana dispensary and adult use recreational dispensary on the same site or building is strictly prohibited. Me personally, I don't see a problem if you have a medical marijuana business and you put a recreational marijuana business on the same building. You know, you're selling the same, you're dealing with the same product, well, it's on the same site. If, for example, if the city is gonna limit how many permits go out to how many recreational dispensaries, then if you already have a medical marijuana dispensary, that's one less site that's gonna be dealing with marijuana. So if the city wants to cut back on the use of the medical marijuana and the recreational dispensary, then if you allow them two on the same site, you eliminate future sites being developed for recreational dispensary. So personally, I don't have a problem putting it on the same site. I mean, if you already have the medical marijuana, everything's already built, all set up, and somebody wants to add in the recreational, it's on the site and everything's there, I personally don't see a problem with that, so, but, yeah.
Yes, I just had a quick question. My name is Adrienne Dean. I'm an attorney.
Can we have your name and address for record, please?
Sure, I'm actually a resident of Drake-it.
Sure, just name and address for the, you
Adrienne
can speak no
Dean,
matter where you live in the country, you can still speak at our planning board meeting.
594 Merrimack Avenue.
Thank you, and your name, please?
Adrienne Dean,
Thank you.
yes. Has the city enacted a bylaw yet addressing the number of recreational marijuana facilities that will be permitted?
What I understand is that will be addressed by the city council. 'Cause
Thank you.
that's not before us with us, the zoning, but I believe what they're gonna do is take up a couple issues. One is, how many they're gonna do, and two, I know the other issue is how they're gonna tax it. Because I know by the state, if you read the state rules and regulations, which are pretty comprehensive, it gives the flexibility what the state can do percentage-wise for how much each city can charge. The
Right.
state can charge so much, the city can charge so much, and what they're trying to do by regulating that is by setting a tax, then therefore they're trying to control it. Some of the argument was they didn't want it too high, because then people would go buy it off other people off the street illegally. So if you make it too high for the city and state to get it, then people aren't gonna use it recreational, they're gonna buy it off somebody else. That's what the arguments that were argued before the state when they were passing it, but yeah, how many they do, and for the tax bit, I think is a city council question. Christine, do you know, is that correct, that they'll be argued, they'll be before the council as well? Is that part of it, or just this part?
My understanding is they're gonna limit the number of dispensaries on, take it up Tuesday night when they take up everything else. That was the last discussion, but I haven't seen it as to form, so I'm not sure what the final
Is
version
that a
is.
public meeting Tuesday?
Yeah. It'll be the city council meeting, a week from tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. So there'll be this public, so this ordinance, we just only make a recommendation on this.
Great.
Sometimes we put comments down. They usually don't concern our comments too often. Usually when, last time we did it, I made a comment and they kind of snubbed that pretty quickly, but that's up to them.
I guess while I'm still up here, I think I have an older version of the ordinance, the proposed ordinance. The co-location of marijuana and tobacco retailing, that's still in there, right?
Yeah, on this number 6, co-location?
Yeah,
Yeah,
6A and
I was
B.
referring to number C, but go ahead, ma'am. Yes, which part?
Oh, I just wanted to confirm that was still in there. I'm not sure how old my draft is, so.
Yeah, so I just had the question about what, if you put on one site, just, say, for example, like, say if they're limited to, I don't know, maybe 10, for example. So if you have a medical one, and you had the recreational one, so now, you're down to 9, where now you still have 8 recreational ones. So if they're trying to cut back how many are gonna be used, if they put them on the same site, they're accomplishing less buildings dealing with marijuana in the city.
Is that the city's goal?
I mean, that's the way I look at it, but, I'm saying, if you have medical marijuana, you have the whole product, you have everything lined up, everything's on site. It's like, whether you're selling if you're selling cars, whether they're used or new, and you sell them on the same lot, let you sell them both, but.
I will say that I resided in Colorado for about a year and a half, and it was not uncommon to see door-to-door medical and retail owned by the same.
Yeah.
And it didn't create any sort of nuisance having the two of them together.
I noticed, I know our state had looked to a lot of the other states to try to draft some guidelines, especially
Right.
the states that already had it in effect.
Yeah, I mean, it's so different everywhere. I mean, Colorado
And I
is,
know the same as in Colorado is in here, Massachusetts, each city or town can vote it up or down if they want it. I mean, we're mandated to have it in the city because the city of Lowell voted for it.
right.
By over 60%.
Wow.
If the city of Lowell voted against it, then we wouldn't have to have this ordinance.
Then none of us would be
So
here talking
since
about
the city of
this.
Lowell voted, I mean, the people in the city of Lowell voted, that's why we have, because we raised the same question. Why do we get it and other towns don't? Because constantly you look in the paper where other towns just totally banned it.
Right.
And then first, a lot of them put the moratorium into effect to find out what was going on until they got more information. And then slowly, they've been going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I've been, so I work in this space and I've gone around to, well, I've been following Drake because I'm a resident, Shirley, Dunstable, Carlisle. Difficult issue for everybody. The planning boards have tried to enact moratoriums, and if they've been voted down, then it's really up to the planning board or the selectmen to come up with what they think would be acceptable to the public. So it's definitely been
Because
tough.
what happened in the moratorium is if you say you couldn't have it, then more people could do it in their house. And more people could grow more in their house. So
Interesting.
they couldn't restrict what the people are doing in their own home.
That's a great argument. I'll have to bring that
That's
up.
why the moratorium came into effect. So the argument was, if you're not gonna do it, then everybody's gonna grow it in their house. And then you have to
Yeah.
regulate it that way. I mean,
I-
right now, for the state, if you grow marijuana on your property, it has to be where it cannot be seen, okay, through a window, and I read this closely, 'cause I'm a clerk magistrate, and we have these hearings, even by telescopic vision. They can't look through my basement window, and if they see a plant, I can get a civil ticket.
Right.
So you can't just grow it out in your backyard.
Yes, well, that'll be certainly
What
interesting.
happened
as
with the
this rolls
moratorium,
in.
a lot of people are gonna say, well, then I'm gonna grow on my own property, and that's why the town started coming around the moratorium, once they got more information on it.
Is cultivation permitted by right anywhere?
I think it's in one
Yes,
zone,
in
yeah,
the light
to end.
industrial and general industrial.
Yeah.
And
That'd
it is
be-
also my understanding that the city council is not interested in limiting those numbers.
Yeah. So that should be the last page, ma'am, on the thing where it says, see where it says, I don't, you have the last page of the ordinance? See where it has, starts off SSF and all that, all those S's, those are all the residential. And then till you get to the end, the LI is light industrial,
Got it.
you know, and then you have other types of area where it's allowed.
Very good.
Most of the residential areas, you can see where it's, retail is by planning board. All the residential areas, you'll see an N, which would be no, so even the planning board couldn't put it in those areas. And then you'd have the cultivation across the top, the testing, the medical treatment, and the recreational as the four down below, so you have that four-line chart. So at the far right, you see some of those that are
Yes.
yes.
Very helpful.
And then some of them would be by planning board, would be the PB. Yeah,
Excellent. Thank you very much.
you're welcome. Yes,
I have a question too, Christina, Mr. Lanahan being an attorney.
can you have your name and address for the record, sir?
Mr. Ed Weezer, Mansion Drive, Lowell, Mass.
Thank you.
And Mr. Fischett, you had a question that I'd like to clarify. I happen to have a light industrial piece of property that abuts the dorms. And I've been approached before. Schooling and classrooms came in before this was already in the works, where it was put into vision here of banning my particular piece of property from these dorms on one of the pieces that I own. And I said, how can you just come and do that? You have to, I still think it's a 500-foot barrier on different things with the LI, with the cultivation and the testing, correct? And I believe that when the classrooms came into effect, it also affected that piece of property on special permitting. Well, before, it wasn't really special permitting for any of that, didn't need it, if you checked some of the zoning on there. And what they had come and done is there was light industrial on the dorms itself before, and they came in and they changed it to institutional. But it accommodated them and the people from the university. But it's not very well accommodating us as being business owners around there where we put under restrictions. And I just wanted to see if there's any type of, you being a lawyer, that I hope we can work this out where everything can be worked out. Not something that's open to the public, something we're looking for as far as cultivation goes, and maybe testing labs.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
The 1,000-foot and 500 feet only apply to retail facilities.
retail?
Yep.
Doesn't apply to the cultivation?
As the ordinance is written, it's only deals with retail facilities.
That answers my question then.
Okay,
Thank you, I thought it was put in there. They took it out then, thank you.
okay. Mr. Fischetta, do you have a question too as well? Okay, I think he mentioned
Figured
that
it
you
had to
had.
deal with the 18 to 21-year-old people that were in there, but if it's just the retail, I'm okay with that.
And again, this will be tomorrow, this will be next week at the city council meeting, so any concerns you
Thank
have,
you.
Mr. Weezy, you can address them
Thank
there,
you.
hopefully, and any questions that you might think of from tonight's meeting till then?
Appreciate it.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
My name is Bob Mayerson. I'm the CEO of Patriot Care. We're privileged to operate the medical marijuana dispensary on Industrial Avenue East, and we have a cultivation facility on Tanner and Lincoln. And just want to say that, by and large, well, first of all, I'd like to say that I'm going to be appearing before you at some point in the near future related to the adult use license, and so, because that's part of the planning board process to come for a special permit, I'll be standing on either here or somewhere down in here for that. And I just want to say to you that if you have any questions now or at any point on anything related to this, we've been operating here in Lowell for the last 2.5 years. We have 3 licenses here in Massachusetts. We operate in Boston, we operate here in Lowell, and we're in Greenfield. Here in Lowell, it's our largest center because we do all of our cultivation here. We've probably become one of the largest employers in the city of Lowell. We have about over 100 people working for us between the 2 facilities. Our payroll is about $3 million right now and growing. So we're really privileged and honored to be here. I think that the ordinance that the planning board has put together and the subcommittee has put together is by and large is very sensible. Since you mentioned the 1,000-foot thing, I'll just say that I frankly thought it should have been a larger number than 1,000 feet because, the number of communities in the surrounding areas that are implementing bans. The moratorium is only like a short-term thing. It only can last for whatever period of time, and there are a number of communities that have instituted bans in the surrounding areas, and what that'll do is force more people to come into a more concentrated area. And, the question of whether you want to really be that concentrated or whether you want to kind of start slower and then let it become more open as time goes on. But it is, it's set up as 1,000 feet, so it is what it is. But that would be the only thing that if I were going to change anything in it, that would be that. And you were mentioning banking before. I'll just say that, it's a little unclear at the moment on the rec side, but we enjoy banking, open banking here in Massachusetts. We take cash and debit cards, and our bank is I don't like to talk about it publicly because everybody knows who it is, and they're very, we have a very open relationship with them. Whether they will bank the recreational only players is a question. Whether they'll, I think they will. I think I've been told that they'll bank the medical players that they have if they adopt adult use, but we don't know that for certain yet either. I think it's very sensible to have, as you said, to have the chief of police really take the time, as we spent a lot of time with the chief of police and previously with Arthur Ryan when he was the chief, getting him comfortable with what we do. And I think if you talk to anybody today, they would say that they've had no issues with our operation. And we really, a lot of that comes back to that security plan and how we operate. So again, I just wanted to say we're honored to be here in Lowell, and I'll be coming back to you. But if you have any questions ever along the way here with anything related to this, because you'll be getting a number of different groups coming, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to give you my perspective at all. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that very much. Thank you. Because, this is all new to us, too. So, and you've been in the business for a few years now, so I'm sure you've had to work it out, especially in other cities and towns as well. Anybody else want to speak in regards to the ordinance? Yes. At the microphone, just state your name, please, sir.
My name is Brian Belts. My address is 1467th Newburyport. I I moved to the area in 2015, and I'm graduating from UMass Lowell this month. And I was looking at
Congratulations.
Thank you. I really like the community, and me and some investors that I put together, just out of sheer pounding the pavement and talking to people. We're looking at property in the light industrial district, which is just below what's the RR district? Sorry. I'm not sure exactly what it stands for, but there's a lot of other stores in the area, and I think it would just be a great place to open up a business, and they have a lot of vacant buildings that I think would be occupied. I was just kind of curious why some of the light industrial districts were not zoned.
Christine, do you know why, by any chance, why some of the light industrials weren't, or weren't given consideration? So they have it for cultivation and testing, but not for medical treatment and recreation in the light industrial?
Our light industrial and our general industrial zones aren't really conducive to retail uses. It's more of a industrial zone, which is why we chose cultivation and testing to be there and proposed to put the regional retail for the dispensaries, because not only is that obviously a retail district, but our regional retail districts are on major corridors in the city adjacent to highways. So we thought it was easy in, easy out.
So, I don't know if that helps answers your question, but that was some of the consideration, I think, that came through the council in the zoning subcommittee meeting.
There's one area on Stedman Street, zoned for light industrial, that has a lot of businesses, cafes, a dance studio, and there's a vacant building that's available for purchase. And it just seemed like a place where a lot of businesses were setting up, so just...
So, if you'd like, you can address your concerns on that when it goes to the city council, because they adopt the final ordinance. We just give a recommendation whether we accept the ordinance or not. So if you have that concern, I would encourage you to show up at the city council meeting next week.
Okay, thank you.
And then just tell them, that's the concern you have, and whether they'll amend part of it or not, they approve the final ordinance. But thank you, sir, for your input. Appreciate it. Anybody else have anything to say? Any of the board members, any follow-up? So what's the recommendation of the board? We can either to make a recommendation to the city council, either in favor or against the ordinance.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that vote in favor of the ordinance that was submitted with the amendments that were submitted to us today. And I would just, we've done this before, again, we wrote it up or down, and I would make the recommendation we vote as submitted with the amendments, but just to highlight that if in fact the council would look to, if they would like to clarify or to bring their attention to either academic or dormitory housing, I think that's to further clarify for problems down the road, that's all. And again, that's just for their consideration.
I'll second that.
Motion is made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. The motion is approved. And good luck, everybody, in the city council meeting for next week. And thank you all for your input. Wish you very much. Thank you. Moving along on the agenda, we have no other business at this time, Christine, is that correct? And I'll just check to see if any further comments from board members? Any of the board members have any further comments?
Yeah, relative to the historic board, our next meeting is it's the second Monday in June, I think it's the 11th or something like that. But I do want to just express appreciation for our administrator, Steve Stoll, for the great job he did with Doors Open. Totally consumed with that over the past few weeks. Another successful year with Doors Open, which is a great community event. I want to recognize him for his effort. That's all.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have in my hand the RFP from MassDOT for the next step in the Rourke Bridge. I'm glad you're sitting down, Mr. Chairman, as I... So,
I read something in the paper and I figured out,
Yeah, that's right, I read that.
I said, I know Jerry's on this, but NEPCOG usually gives him the inside scoop before we get it.
so this is for the environmental permitting and for the 25% design submission. And actually, I did speak with Beverly Woods just to get clarification as well, and they are putting some sort of mechanism in place too for local public process, because the RFP seems a little light in that, and that should be part of the process so that you can get some local input. Just to put all of this in perspective, though, it appears that there wouldn't be a consultant in place until the end of the year, December or January of next year. And assuming it goes along as expected, this is probably a 2-year process, what we're looking at here for the environmental permitting and the 25% design submission. But, and my understanding is for this portion of it, MassDOT does have the funding for this portion of it, so that's important to understand. There still hasn't been any funding identified for the bridge itself, but again, we're still several years out before we start looking at that. But again, it is progress at this point. This phase has to happen before we get to the next phase.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bichette. Any other board members have any comments? If not, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Motion made in second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes, motion carries. We are adjourned, good night, and thank you, everyone.